Welcome to the Ask Ezra Intimacy Coaching Podcast, a peek behind the curtain of some of the most intimate conversations that people have with Ezra as an intimacy coach. Join us for a session already in progress.
And you were saying that you were having some sort of recurring challenges in relationships, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, so how about, can you describe those to us?
So what I have found is I tend to have an issue pairing myself with people who don't have the same goals and ambitions that I do, and I know this up front, but I feel like obviously I can fix them and I can take care of them because I'm a caretaker very much by nature. I want to fix everyone, I want to take care of them, but then on the same totem, I'm also extremely independent and I expect that from other people. So then I end up being taken advantage of by a system I've created myself.
Yeah. That's super common. A lot of people experience that, especially when we're sort of pushed into this caregiver role early on in life. So do you feel like you want to be in that caregiver role?
So I don't mind being a caregiver. Kind of the objection I have to it of late is it is taken to such an extent that I'm exhausted. I'm destroying my own boundaries. I mean, I'm setting a boundary and people are like, I don't really have to follow that. What are you going to do? I mean, you're still going to consider it your fault that I broke your boundary. And I'm like, well, you're probably actually kind of right. So it's not that I mind caregiving and trying to take care of people. That's just foundationally who I am. I've been that way since I was a kid. It's just, I have to find that balance of, okay, yes, I want to take care of you, but you're also still responsible for your own actions.
Yeah. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that your boundaries really aren't respected in that relationship.
Right.
Do you feel like you can prioritize yourself?
No.
No.
I'm terrible at that.
So caretaking, just not for Kitten Michelle.
Right. I take care of everyone else but me. It's definitely a struggle.
Yeah. Again, super common. Yeah. You're not alone. A lot of people are doing this. I would also venture to say, is people pleasing maybe part of that experience as well?
Yeah, probably. I'm very much a people pleaser.
Now, do we feel like people pleasing is a good thing?
I hesitate to say that it's a bad thing because I don't think it's bad to want to make other people happy. I feel like lately, maybe I personally take it to an extent that makes it not a very healthy thing.
Yeah. And you've watched a couple of these episodes already, huh?
I have. I watched all of them, actually.
All of them? I'm so flattered. Thank you so much.
I think there's actually 2 of them that aren't on YouTube, though, and it kind of bugged me. It's 24 and 25. It goes from 23 to 26. And I was like, wait, no, there's 2 missing.
Yeah, they might be audio only. There's a couple that are audio only. We're definitely... I don't want to call it a new season. I want to separate the episodes by number, and they're totally just chronological, but we did take a break over the summer, and as we come back, there's a couple episodes that are audio only, and some people just are feeling really private and really concerned with being seen, and I understand that. It's a very vulnerable place. So yeah. Well, thank you again. I'm flattered. And so we talked a little bit about people pleasing before, right? And I think that there's a difference between an interest in service and an interest in caring for people and people pleasing. Yeah, people pleasing usually describes when you forget yourself in order to help others, right?
Yeah.
How good would Mother Teresa have been if she never brushed her teeth or took a shower?
Okay.
Right? You could dedicate your life to service, but you need to be able to take care of yourself. Right? And if you're taking care of others instead of yourself, you're not doing anybody any favors. Yeah, it's almost like an escape, right?
I think it's just a lot easier to take care of other people because I feel like they have, if I can fix the challenges that you are facing today, then at least I've done something productive with my day and I feel better about myself because there's so much in my life that I can't fix or control that it it band-aids it a bit to be able to do that for other people.
So is it not a productive day if you spend the day taking care of yourself?
No, I feel like it's a day wasted because I could have been using that time for more productive things.
I don't think there's anything more productive than taking care of yourself. How can you show up? It's like, put your own oxygen mask on before you help others, right? Like, okay, if I'm drowning and you come to save me, but you can't swim, have you saved me?
No, we're both going to die because I cannot swim.
Yeah. So don't run out and try to save people who are drowning, because we're just going to drown together.
But at least you're not alone.
Yeah, okay, sure. At least I'm not alone. Isn't it better to be alive on the beach than dead in the water, regardless of who's there? I think it also, it's a value issue. It's like a value judgment of the time that it takes to take care of yourself. Like, do you feel like brushing your teeth is a waste of time?
No.
Okay. Do you feel like showering is a waste of time?
No.
If you never relax, if you never take time for yourself, what's going to happen?
I mean, eventually you're going to burn out.
Yeah. And you're going to like explode on somebody who, doesn't really have anything to do with it. So let's take a minute to talk about boundaries, right? So tell me about that. You said that, you don't feel like your boundaries are respected in these relationships.
So I have a tendency to be like a very private person. And I know we kind of briefly discussed it before with some of my medical stuff, but like I had surgery this week and one of my boundaries was I didn't want anyone there.
Mm-hmm.
I specifically did not tell people where I was going because I did not want anyone there. I still ended up with people showing up. And I'm like, so now I'm miserable in pain trying to deal with that. But I find myself, even as the nurse is coming in, where's your pain level? Where's your pain level? Oh, it's like a 3, I'm fine. I was dying. But I couldn't admit that like in front of people. And I didn't feel like I had any ability to really take in what was being said to me and the magnitude of everything I was going through in that moment because I had to put on a good face to make sure they were okay. Like it was no longer about me at that moment. It was about making sure the people who were there, they were okay. I wasn't making them uncomfortable in my actions. I wasn't making them feel guilty because I was in pain. And even with minor boundaries, not quite that severe, I have that issue of, well, yes, I'm uncomfortable because you crossed my boundary, but I don't want to make you uncomfortable and I don't want to make you feel bad. And like I put their feelings above my own, even when it comes to my boundaries.
Does that feel like a service to you? Do you feel like you're doing them a favor?
Sometimes, yes. And sometimes I think it's just a tendency to add a degree of naivety to people that may not necessarily be there and assume, well, they probably didn't mean it that way. And I make a lot of excuses for people of, well, they just want to be there. It's because they care. And I mean, that's not really a good excuse, but they are like, I try to justify their actions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, you shouldn't have to give excuses for anybody, right? We're all adults. We're supposed to be. I mean, I love your example, right? I love your example of being in the hospital and you need to be healing and you need to be communicating with that nurse. And because that person is there, you can't do that. You're still caring for somebody while you're in the hospital bed. Does that feel like that's the most important job at that moment?
So I know the correct answer here is no. But yes, in that moment, it felt like it was more important to me to make sure that they were okay. Because by making sure they were okay, the worst thing that could possibly happen was that I stayed uncomfortable. And I limited those negative emotions and feelings to myself and didn't spread them to anyone else.
I think really the worst case scenario is that you're not safe. You don't recover because you don't get the treatment that you need. I think that's worse than feeling uncomfortable. I mean, am I wrong? Would you rather die than be uncomfortable?
No, I mean, you're not wrong. It's very difficult.
I understand. Yeah. No, this is really tough stuff. Nobody said this would be easy. But, I applaud you in showing up and I applaud you in your honesty here. But in that moment, your safety depends on your ability to be in that discomfort. So I hear you saying you don't want to be in these caretaker relationships. Or more, I hear that you don't want to be in these unhealthy relationships, right? A lot of my guests are in the BDSM community. I think you reached out to me on FetLife. So, so can you tell me, what are your interests? I mean, not to go specifically into fetishes, but like with regard to power exchange, do you know like how you identify that way?
So I tend to lean pretty heavily on the submissive side of most like power exchange dynamics.
Yeah, sure. And you feel like it's really submissive and less like total power exchange or slave or bottom on the other side of the spectrum?
No, I think it's more like subby service sub type area.
Sure.
I don't get into the total power exchange. I am way too much of a control freak for that.
Yeah.
Definitely admire people who can, but that's not my cup of tea.
Sure. And it doesn't have to be. Yeah, it's not a value issue. It's just a preference issue, right? With power exchange, right, we have scenes. We have moments where we decide, okay, I'm not going to make any choices, or I'm going to only make so many choices, or these are the choices that I'm going to make and the rest I can't make, or, it's all sort of negotiable, right? But the scene ends. The scene ends, and then you need your agency. So if you're going to be like a good sub, I use that very loosely, then you need to be able to have your agency. And what you're describing to me in this hospital situation is a moment where you really did not have your agency. You did not have the power to create the situation that you would prefer. So what's really valuable in this power exchange community is that we have the opportunity to put it on and take it off. And so we really need to work on taking it off. We really need to work on having that experience be with end caps. And the way that that's going to happen is we're going to practice standing up for ourselves, practice asserting that boundary when the boundary is crossed, express that the boundary has been crossed and it's not how you would like, without, it doesn't have to be blaming. It doesn't have to be, you did this, right? It can be, hey, this isn't the experience that I was really hoping for. One way in that hospital situation you might have said is, hey, I really value that you care for me and that you're willing to come for me. It does make me feel uncomfortable, and I really prefer that you're not here because I need to be able to communicate to my nurse. Right? Does that sound hurtful to you?
Yes.
That's projection. That's not hurtful. That's I statements. I say, look, I value you, right? But this is what I need. And what I need is not what you're doing. And it may feel like a gift to that person, but it's not. It's only a gift to somebody who doesn't care how you feel. And is that the kind of person you want to be in a relationship with?
No.
Yeah. Yeah, most people it isn't. So what we need to do is stick up for ourselves. And if sticking up for ourselves ends the relationship, it was a terrible relationship. Right? If they can't handle your boundaries, that's not who you want to be with. Right? You shouldn't have to choose between your boundaries and the person. So, I mean, I used this example before, right? The close talker. So let's say we are friends and I am just a close talker and you can't stand that, right? You value me as a friend. Every time we do Zoom, it's great. Every time we do a phone call, it's great. And then when we get in person, you can like feel my hot breath on you. I'm like way too close. Yeah, it's just really uncomfortable, right? And I'm sure that your first impulse is to say grin and bear it, right? And then eventually you avoid me, right? Or you blow up at me. And I'm like, where did this come from? because you never established that boundary. You never told me, hey, I need you to take a couple steps back, right? And if I'm a close talker, it's not the first time I'm going to be interacting with that, right? It's not the first time I'm going to get that feedback. I'm going to say, oh, okay, you're one of those people. Let me put my hand out and I'll make a good measure. And then I'll stand back because I really value you and I want you to feel comfortable, right? So, I mean, in that really isolated situation, you can see that holding your discomfort to yourself is not an investment in the relationship, right? It's an investment in your temporary comfort at the expense of the relationship.
That's a really good way to reframe that.
Yeah. And we want you to have relationships that really are worth protecting, right? Like you might find people that don't care or are more comfortable with you being uncomfortable than knowing the truth, right? And in that case, maybe you don't want to invest in those relationships, but we want you to have relationships that are worth investing in. And then when that does come around, you don't want to throw it away just because today's a little uncomfortable. And, I'm not blaming you. I totally get it. This is a really common experience. And honestly, 9 times out of 10, it has to do with parents who just weren't grown-ups. Parents who just weren't adults in the room, And so they really fucked us up a little bit. So we got to do a little reparenting. We got to be the grown-up for ourselves.
Would you like private intimacy coaching? Perhaps you'd like to be a guest on our show. Either way, book your free 30-minute intro call with Ezra at askezra.info.
Michelle, I would love to practice holding boundaries with you. Is that something you'd be open to?
Okay.
Okay. So if you want, we can do the close talking thing.
All right.
And what I need you to do is say, hey, Ezra, I'm loving the conversation we're having, but I really need you to step back because I need a little bit more space, right? Mm-hmm. The opposite of that is, hey, fuckface, do you think this is the right approach? You think this is appropriate, right? Like, that's not what we're going to do, right? We're not going to insult people. We're not going to put them down. We're going to establish that we do really value them and the experience and that we need something that isn't there, right? And say, can you help me with this? Can you do this for me, right? And let's do it twice, at least twice, right? And you can be the close talker at first. Okay. So what I want from you is I want you to be excited to see me, and I want you to get like real close to the camera, right? Lean in. Okay. So people who are viewing could feel the discomfort, and I'm going to interrupt you, and I'm going to be kind and respectful, and I'm going to use I statements and state my boundary and ask you to do that. And the way that you're going to respond is say, thank you for holding that boundary with me.
Okay.
If you want to get creative, you can. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
Okay. Scene.
Okay. Ezra. What are you doing? I'm so happy to see you.
Michelle, I'm really happy to see you too. But I really need you to just take a couple steps back and then we can continue the conversation because I'm really particular about my personal space.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I understand. Thanks for holding that boundary.
Yeah, and thank you for understanding. And scene. Right? Fantastic. I love that. Okay. So do you think that you can perform that same task?
Yes.
Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
Michelle, I'm so excited to see you. How's it going?
Ezra, I'm so glad to see you too. I need a little more personal space. Can I have a step or two?
Okay. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, thanks for telling me.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'd hate to make you uncomfortable. And scene. Right? And didn't that feel good? Yeah, like it's when we hold the boundary back, then it builds up pressure and it ends up being an explosion. And then in that point, it's really hard to be kind, right? But the way to think about it, we're going to do another reframe, is sharing a boundary is an act of love, right? Michelle, I really want to hear from you. I really want to hear what happened to your day. Share your excitement with me, but just from 3 feet back so that I can breathe. Okay, I want to spend a moment envisioning for a second, right? What does it look like if a year from now you have mastered this skill of sharing boundaries?
I think if I was to master the skill of setting boundaries, I would probably be a lot less reluctant to be around people. I tend to be very standoffish towards people, and I'm just at a point where I'm not even dating right now, because I know that I neglect myself in the way of setting boundaries and holding them. So the only way to protect myself from me in that situation is just to put up a wall and be like, no, see, here's my line. You stay on that side of it. I'm going to stay on this side of it. That way I don't ever have to actually encounter or deal with this. So I think if I actually mastered the boundary, I would probably have a lot more valuable connections with people, and I wouldn't push people away so much.
Yeah. Okay, skill number 2 is reestablishing a boundary. So somebody breaks that boundary, and then you got to reestablish it. In the same way, when somebody didn't know it in the first place, we're also going to be kind. We're going to assume it wasn't done maliciously, right? And we're going to say, hey, so like maybe you forgot, but this is the boundary that I really prefer, and I'm going to need you to respect that. Is that something that you can do? Or is there any way that I can help you understand that or help you remember that, right? So not only are we saying, look, I'm assuming that this was not malicious. Sometimes it is. And if it is, then all bets are off. You need a different exercise, right? But if it's not malicious, and we say, hey, I appreciate the spirit with which you're acting, but we need to come back to where I'm okay, because I'm not okay right here. Can you do that? I even like better than can you do that? I like open-ended questions like, what do you need to, what do you need from me to respect that boundary? And most time people say, oh, I don't need anything, right? But maybe you find out and say, oh, I'll need a reminder, or I'll need a little bit more explanation because I don't quite understand what this boundary is about, or something like that, right? You give them a chance to sort of fill in the gaps. We'll do the imagination thing too for a second here. What would it look like if, when people violated your boundaries, that you could have that loving energy and bring back the boundary and say, hey, this is really where I need to be. Can we respect that?
I don't know, because I instantly go to, well, okay, if I reinforce that boundary and I remind them of that boundary, then they're going to feel bad and they've wasted time to do this. And well, their intentions were good. Like, I don't know what that would look like.
Yeah, I hear you. And there's that caretaking coming in, right? Who is responsible for your emotions, Michelle?
Me.
That's right. Who's responsible for other people's emotions?
Also me.
No. That is incorrect. Are they a child in your care?
No.
Then it is not correct. Right? Are you willfully in a codependent relationship? Maybe. But if the answer is yes, if you've chosen to be in a codependent relationship, yes, you're responsible for each other's feelings, right? And we can do that in a scene where we can say, okay, for the next hour, I'm a baby and you need to make sure that I'm okay, right? But that's a scene, and the scene ends, right? That's not how we can live our lives. And I think family members are really, really hard. Family members, you can't get rid of them, and you can't teach them sometimes. So I want to think about friends. and maybe even partners. But for the sake of this exercise, we're going to take family members and put them off to the side. That's like expert level boundary setting. So it's not impossible, but it's a lot harder, right? They love to tell you who you used to be. You know, oh, well, I didn't have to respect your boundaries before. So, and I'm speaking from experience there for sure.
I brought you into this world. Yeah.
Ooh, that's one. That's a guilt trip right there.
Yeah.
Okay. We're not going to touch that. That's for therapy. I can't help you with that. So we're thinking about friends. We're thinking about friends who forgot our boundaries, right? Forgot, or just were so excited, whatever. If you want to think about lovers, you can do that too. So what's a good example of somebody who forgot a boundary?
I have a touching boundary. Like when I go to munches and stuff, I have a severe hatred for, like, especially in the South, people want to like put their hand on your arm or on the small of your back, or and that one gets violated pretty often, either by people who just assume it's okay, or people who are like, oh crap, I'm sorry, I forgot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Now, I hear you, and that's really common, right? A lot of people are very touchy, and then a lot of other people are really not. And then those two people interface, and then it's a conflict, right? And the people pleaser in you is going to say, just eat it, just be uncomfortable, right? But that's not how you build relationships, right? So, I really want to think about the caveat here is, if it's somebody who you don't have a relationship with and you don't want a relationship with, then that might be better, right? It might be, it's, worth avoiding that conflict. That might make sense. It's really up to you, right? And the second one is if your safety is on the line, right? Making somebody else feel uncomfortable in a setting where your safety is at risk, side with your safety, right? Absolutely. But in the case of you feel generally safe and this person is somebody who you want to maintain a relationship with, then, holding that boundary is really valuable, because it's going to help them be a better friend to you, be a better lover to you, right? So I want you to imagine somebody who is at a munch, who has seen you before, who you actually really do want to be friends with, right? Or you do want to be partners with. And they do that thing where they just forget and they put their hand on your shoulder, right? Or they come in really aggressively for a hug, right? I'm a hugger for sure. And so I do my best every time I say, can I give you a hug? Right? Because sometimes just opening your arms and coming in close, and then the person doesn't know what to do and just lets it happen, right? I don't want reluctant hugs. I want fuck yes hugs. So if it's not a fuck yes, please tell me. If you're listening to this and you've given me a lukewarm hug, please tell me. Okay. So let's do this. Let's say you and I are friends. We're at a munch and I'm just a hugger and I just come in to hug. So let's do first, you're going to do it to me, and I'm going to model. I'm going to sort of be that example of how you might do that in a loving way. Right? And then we're going to switch and you can do it.
Okay.
All right. So you be huggy. Okay. Michelle, so nice to see you. Oh, hold on a second. Thanks. I appreciate your energy, but I'm just getting over a cold and I'd hate to get somebody sick. No hugs for me. Thank you. You want to do an elbow bump? And then you say, thank you for letting me know.
Thank you for letting me know.
My pleasure. Okay. All right. So you think you can do that?
Yes.
Yeah. You don't have to give an excuse, right? I kind of jumped in with an excuse. You can, sometimes it makes it feel easier to say, hey, give an explanation, but really you don't owe anybody an explanation for your boundaries, right? So, if you need to, say an excuse, but if you can stand to, don't say an excuse and sort of let that discomfort wash over you, and it'll make you stronger. I could see the discomfort on your face already. And as a sadist, it gives me pleasure. So I'm happy.
I'm glad you at least get pleasure from it.
Yes, exactly. I'm happy to be present for your growing pains, Michelle. Okay, are you ready? Are you ready for this?
I'm ready.
Michelle, it's so good to see you.
Oh,
Give me a
Ezra,
big
I'm
hug.
not feeling so great. Let's not do the hugging thing. Thank
Okay.
you, though.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for letting me know. I get excited. What can I say? And how did that feel?
It felt very weird.
Yeah. Yes, because you're not doing it. It's alien. But really, like, I don't want a hug you don't want to be in. So you're doing me a favor. I think it's easy to think about holding your feelings to yourself as a favor, as a service to others. And really, it's a disservice. It's a disservice to anybody who cares about the way that you feel. And I know we're not too close, Michelle, but I care how you feel. I want you to feel good. I want you to feel okay. If you feel uncomfortable, I want it to be for a reason, for a good reason.
I think a lot of times I feel like rather than an excuse, I have to like explain like, okay, well, I don't want you to hug me because it makes me feel trapped and I feel these ways. And then I feel like I'm putting those feelings like on someone else and making them feel like they're responsible for them. So a lot of times like all of this is going through my head so fast, I'm just like, no, we're just gonna take the hug. We're not gonna say anything. It's gonna be fine. So I definitely think having like a very small, hey, maybe I don't feel so good, with my health condition, it's not a good idea for a bunch of people to be in my personal space. Having something smaller like that makes me feel like I don't have to give them the entire flipping story of why I don't want them touching me. So that
you don't
they
want to
don't feel
just
like it's
shout.
just them.
You don't want to just like shout 6 feet apart. 6 feet apart!
I mean, yes, sometimes I do.
Do it! Do it!
I know. Lights down.
Yeah, no, and yeah, it's like a muscle, right? Staying in that discomfort. So, okay, it felt weird. Are you okay?
Yes.
Yeah, you are. You are okay. You can, and this is resilience, right? Your ability to get into that uncomfortable feeling and then live is resilience. And every time you get into those feelings, it's not purposeless, it's not valueless, because you get out of it and you're showing yourself that you can live through that. There's a part of the brain, I'm not going to be able to give you the exact details of this because it's not the way my brain works, but there's a moment, there's like that experience of like deer in the headlights, that fight or flight response. It disengages the component of your brain that understands time. And so in the middle of it, you go, oh, I live here now. This is how I'm going to feel forever. Even if it's just like 2 seconds, and you just got to remember these are all fleeting feelings. I'm not going to feel like this for very long. So how does that feel?
It's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. We did a lot today. Yeah, and I don't want to push you past where you're feeling okay. So I think that's probably a good place to stop. But what I would also encourage you to think about is, we did this reframing about sharing those boundaries. And when we can also sort of work on the sort of grander picture of caring for somebody else, right? If we take away somebody's sadness or somebody's anger or somebody's fear, then we're robbing them of their life experience, right? We're stealing an opportunity for them to grow and to build their resilience, right? And so where it feels like a service to be caring for others, there are ways to care for others that are sincere services, but saving somebody from their feelings is not one of them. You get lemons. The overbearing mother goes, oh, you don't want lemons, they're too sour. But, if you have lemons, you can make lemonade. And if you get your lemons stolen because somebody's worried about you, then you don't get a chance. Well, I'm really happy that you messaged me. I'm really happy you came on. I'm flattered that you watched every episode, and now you can watch the episode when you're in it.
I'll probably skip that one.
Maybe it'll be the best.
Thanks for watching the Ask Ezra Intimacy Coaching Podcast. Support our show at patreon.com/AskEzra. Join us at the personal growth tier and receive a special thank you on the next podcast episode. A very special thank you to both Sarah Nash and Deb Matson for being Patreon supporters at the personal growth tier and helping make the Ask Ezra Intimacy Coaching Podcast possible.